All right, well, thanks so much for joining us today. I do appreciate it. And today the topic is being like a palm tree. And in my life, I have been through a number of hurricanes. And in fact, the company I used to work for had a facility on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. And it was about 2005, I think it was, Hurricane Katrina came rolling through town. And there were all kinds of trees in the area, big oak trees, magnolia trees. These things were big, but they were no match for the winds of Hurricane Katrina. You'd find trees and trees and trees just knocked down over in people's yards, knocked over on top of buildings and stuff like that. None of them could withstand the force of these winds. There was one tree. There was one tree that could do it. And it was the palm tree. It seems that God decided to make the palm tree to be able to withstand a storm. And unlike most other trees, palm trees, they bend. And they bend, they don't break. Right? Those oak trees, they just snap. Palm tree bends it over. There's a certain kind of palm that can be bent over so much that it can almost like touch the ground. And so while a hurricane can just blow and blow for hours and hours and hours, that palm tree's bent over, looks like it's done. But once the hurricane's done, palm tree just goes right back to where it was. Why is that? Why is it? Well, it seems that God put something in the palm tree that gives it some bounce back. It can get pushed over, it can get pushed around, but it's only temporary. It's just a matter of time before it picks it right back up. The palm tree just stands up. It reminds me of Psalm 92. It says, "The righteous will flourish like a palm tree." Right? Like a palm tree. He could have said we're going to flourish like an oak tree. He could have said we're going to flourish like a pine tree and stay green all year round, right? All sorts of things. But he said a palm tree. Palm tree. Now, what the writings talk about is that palm trees represent spiritual good. So it's a goodness that's directed towards other people. And the reason I think it represents spiritual goodness is because, well, you've got to be able to have some bounce back in you. Spiritual people have got to be flexible. They got to withstand the storm. They got to handle things and keep on going. When something kind of tries to push them down, well, they bend with it and they just pop right back up. We're all going to go through seasons where the winds are blowing and the storm is raging. You're going to have disappointments. You're going to have losses, dealing with illnesses. But we're not supposed to get discouraged about these things. It's only temporary. At some point, Hurricane Katrina stopped blowing. And at some point, all this coronavirus stuff is going to come to an end. We're in the storm right now. But we just got to not believe the lies that are being fed into our minds that this is permanent. Our lives are destroyed and things are never going to be the same again. That's what the hell wants to feed us, right? You're never going to get well. You're never going to finish. Your business is never going to take off again. You're never going to get those kids out of the house, right? That's what the hells want to tell us, right? You might be a little bent over right now, but you might be having some difficulties. But when that storm passes, you're supposed to be encouraged because you're going to stand right back up where you once were. Research shows that when the palm tree is being bent over like this, it's actually going to get stronger. There's something happens in it that when it comes back up, it's stronger than it was before. It's strengthening the root system and it's giving itself opportunities for growth. That's impressive. And that's what's supposed to happen in our life. So when palm trees, you think about them representing spiritual people and spiritual goodness, that's a good image to keep in your mind, all right? You're going to be bent down, but you're going to come back stronger than you were before. You're going to be healthier. You're going to be happier. You're going to be ready for the next storm that comes, because it will, right? I think everybody watching here is probably old enough to remember 10 years ago we had a global financial crisis. And before that, there was the dot-com boom. And before that, there was a recession. There's always something. So this is different, but it's not really new. God's always going to bring stuff our way, or it's not God bringing the bad stuff our way, but God's going to bring good stuff out of the bad stuff, right? It's not going to defeat us. It's going to promote us. It's going to help us do better. Proverbs 24 verse 16 says, though a righteous man falls 7 times, he rises again. The wicked are brought down by calamity. Right? There's that bounce back. Righteous man falls down, but the wicked man brought down. Look, and we all go through difficulties, right? I get that. And it's easy to get discouraged. You can sit there and go, well, why am I having these problems? And the reality is, being a person of faith doesn't exempt you from difficulties. Just because you believe in God and you try to do what's right doesn't exempt you from that. Scripture says rain falls on the unjust and the just, right? No matter how good of a person you are, you got to honor God, but you're going to have some rain. It's just going to happen. And I've heard the sentiment before, and maybe you have as well, that, hey, you know, I'm having more problems than my neighbor down the street, and they don't honor God. They don't go to church. They're an atheist. You know, they don't have anything to do with God. How come they're having a better go of it than I am? Well, Jesus told a parable about this. He said, there's a wise man who built his house on a rock. He honored God. Another man built his house on the sand. Well, he didn't honor God. The winds blew, the rains came and beat on that house, and you'll notice that the storm came to both people. But the story doesn't end there, right? It doesn't end there. Because if it did, you'd say, oh, well, it makes no difference whether you honor God or not. But it doesn't. He says, the winds blew, and it knocked down and washed out the house of the man whose house was built on sand. Both have to go through the storm. But the man who honors God, his house still stands. Same thing for us. You get a bad medical report, you get a bad financial report, your stocks are all down, you lost your biggest client, your business isn't doing well. Well, that's not the end of the story for you. Just like it wasn't the end of the story for the man who built his house on a rock. And if you judge too soon, it might not seem like being a good, faithful person doesn't make a difference. But the thing is, the story keeps on going. You get knocked down, but you don't get knocked out. The tree bends, but it doesn't break. You suffer a setback, you go through a few things, but you don't get discouraged. You don't get bitter. It's just life. It rains on all of us. The promise that we get is that, well, when the smoke clears, the dust settles, when the pandemic is over, we're going to be better off. You're going to still be standing. And you can look back at your own life and think about things that should have defeated you. Maybe there was a divorce. Maybe it was a bad break financially. Maybe there was some catastrophe at work. You know, somebody ran out on you, did you wrong. There are all sorts of things that have happened in each one of our lives. We've all had something. But you're still standing here today. You're still going. Life has still moved on, and you're still going, and you're better off today probably than you were then. When you go through things, you see the goodness of God. You see Him lift you up. You see Him restore you. And what happens over the years is you start to build this history with God. You know, you look back and you go, oh, you know what? I wanted this. And God gave me that. And boy, you know what? Looking now, I'm sure glad He gave me what He gave me, and He didn't give me what I asked for. Right? And as you keep looking through the course of your life, you see these things happen time and time again. There's some struggle, but then there's something that good comes out of it. You might be in a difficult time right now, but you've got to kind of lean on that history. You've got to remember that the God is the one who promoted you, who restored you, who healed you. He did it for you once, He'll do it again. Your house is built on a rock. So you've got to take inventory of your life and look at these other times when you've been down. This is what I think the Lord was doing with the children of Israel. And He's building a history with them. He's building His credibility with them. And He had to do it by letting them go through trials. I mean, think about this. They're coming out of Egypt. All the plagues have just been done, and they're up against the Red Sea. Have they learned how to bend like the palm tree? Or do they break? Because the way the story goes, it looks like they break. They go up to the Red Sea. Here comes Pharaoh. And what do they say to Moses? Oh no, you've brought us here to die. Aren't there enough graves in Egypt? Come on, that's ridiculous. I mean, really, it's ridiculous. What should they have said had they integrated what they had learned already? They just saw the greatest nation on earth brought to its knees by God. They should have seen Pharaoh coming and look back and go, oh man, these guys don't learn. These guys are stupid. What are they doing coming after us? Haven't they learned? Haven't they seen all the plagues that have just happened? These guys are going to get themselves killed coming after us. That should have been the response. Yeah, here comes a storm, but we're just going to bend with it. Here comes a storm. We're just going to ride it out because we know it's those guys who are in trouble, not us. Well, we don't see a way out. Moses cries to the Lord and he says, oh, Lord, help. What does the Lord say? Stay calm, go forward. Stay calm, go forward. All right? That palm tree sees that storm coming. All right, here we go again. Oh, we're just going to stretch out. Stay calm. It's going to blow for a few hours, and then it's going to be done. Doesn't that storm know it can't blow me over? Right? Isn't that what the palm tree says? That storm's trying hard. It's trying hard to blow that palm tree over. Don't you know you can't do this by now? Haven't we played this game before? You can't do it. I got bend in me. I got spring back. I'm going to be just fine. So when the children of Israel come out of Egypt and they cross that Red Sea, trivia for you, do you know where they go? Where do they end up? What's the first stop? Give up? Elim. E-L-I-M. They go to Elim. That's where they came to. And Elim means a state of enlightenment and affection. It's a state of comfort that comes after temptation. You know what's at Elim? Two things. 12 oases or 12 springs of water. And palm trees. A whole lot of palm trees. 70 palm trees. So you go through this temptation and what do you get? Water and palm trees. You get some truth, you get, all right, some refreshment, and you get some shade, and you get a symbol of what it is you're to become. Palm trees are about that spiritual goodness. And the idea here in this oasis is it's a joining together of the intellectual side of what you know with the mind side of your life, the actual, action side. You go, okay, I've learned something now. Lord's gonna save me. Lord's got my back. The Lord's gonna protect me. And you have these two things brought together. That's the process that we're all going through in temptation, as we say, oh, this isn't gonna work out. I'm scared. I'm frightened. Lord, how come you won't save me? But then He brings you through. He's building that history with you. He's building that history with you so that the next time something goes wrong, you go back and go, you know what, last time something like this happened, something kind of crazy, something out of the ordinary, something I wasn't expecting, and it looked like everything was bad, it was all right. And so you know what, this time, even though things look crazy and they're bad and I don't feel like I'm comfortable right now, I'm out of my comfort zone, I'm stuck at home with my family who's driving me crazy, or my kid who's watching too much computer time, I'm doing all these things, you know what? This is going to be all right. I'm going to come out all right. Because I've been to Elim and I've seen all the things there. I've learned. I've absorbed it. And I've integrated this stuff into my life. That's what's going on. All these inner things are happening. So that every time you look back, you say, yep, the Lord's restored me. We're not supposed to go through weak and defeated and go, oh, you know why this happened to me? I don't understand it. I can tell you this, though. It rains on everyone. Everyone. But the people who live God-centric lives, people who are spiritual in their thinking, they're like that palm tree. They have bounce back in their spirit. They don't have all the answers, right? We don't have all the answers. But we know what's going to happen. Is that something good will come out of it. We don't have to have all the answers, because we haven't always had the answers. We just know that history, God will bring something good out of it. No matter how hard the winds blow, they can't beat you. No matter how many times those Egyptians come running after you, it's their funeral, not yours. That's the way it goes. Doesn't matter. You stay in faith, you keep doing the right things, you do what God says, and you'll be able to just say, you know what? That storm came and went, that pandemic came and went, but I'm still standing. Coronavirus had me down for a little while, but it didn't defeat me. I came out stronger. Whatever it is you had, or whatever it is you're going through, you want to be able to say, I'm still standing. And you'll be able to say that as long as you build your house on that rock. If you're like a palm tree that's flexible, and you have that solid foundation, you're going to be all right. I opened this with mentioning about Hurricane Katrina, and just kind of end with this too, because some of the people that I worked with, they lost a lot in Hurricane Katrina. I mean, Pascagoula, Mississippi is right there on the Gulf Coast. I mean, it was at the worst part of the hurricane. Some of my friends, they lost their homes. And these people didn't have a lot of money. They were workers. They weren't rich. And a lot of them had no idea how they were going to recover financially from that loss. My boss, thankfully, had taken out an insurance policy, and he was going to use the money to get the company up and running, but also try to spread it around and take care of these employees. We were a small company, and it was kind of family-like, and he was going to take care of some people. But of course, the insurance company didn't want to pay. And so the workers were thinking, man, this just can't get any worse. Can't catch a break. We thought we might have been covered. For those people, the storm lasted a lot longer than the few hours that Hurricane Katrina went through town. And it did take them time to recover. But it's about, year and a half, 2 years later, the company got bought out. And in that time, these people had shown such confidence in their jobs, restoring that facility, getting the work going, getting everything happening again, that when we did get bought out, all of those people were offered relocation. We'll offer you to go to North Carolina. And it was a much nicer facility, a much nicer place to live. They ended up with more money in their pockets, and they had nicer homes and really better jobs out of the whole deal. In the end, they were restored. And they weren't just restored the same, they were restored better. Isaiah says, when the enemy comes in like a flood, he was talking about feeling overwhelmed. But for my friends, that flood was a very real flood. It wasn't just about being overwhelmed spiritually. The enemy comes after us and he tries to ruin us in all sorts of ways. But the Lord, when these things happen, gets to work. He sends his angels out and he says, you guys go take care of these people. These are good people. We're going to look after them. Don't just restore them better. They're like palm trees. They're flexible. They're going to have some bounce back in them, and they're going to stand up stronger, and they're going to grow from this. So I guess what it all boils down to me is in tough times, which is really what we're in right now, you're not alone. That's the main thing. You're not alone. You've got somebody fighting for you. The Most High God has your back, and all you've got to do is just have that attitude like the palm tree. Man, you can try to blow me down, but you can't. I'm a spiritual person, and spiritual people are flexible. We see that God's looking after us, and while this wind might blow, I'm going to spring right back up in the end. Amen.